An IAM only for whale lovers or for the general masses? But more importantly, is this going to sound as big as it looks? Let's find out. Hello and thank you for clicking on this video where I'll be sharing my first experience on a Hidizs product. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And for today's video, I'll be talking about the MP145, which is an IM with a planar magnetic driver. As of recording this video, this IM is a Kickstarter project and is getting a lot of traction as they've surpassed their goal of $8,000 and they pretty much blew their goals out of the water. Pun intended. So if you're curious to know about this IAM, I'll leave a link in the description down below for you to check it out. Reason why you're hearing so much about whales for this IAM is because Hidizs is partnering up with WDC, which is the Whale and Dolphin Conservation Group, to raise awareness on whale conservation. So you'll see a lot of this topic in their Kickstarter campaign and some influence on the design, which we'll talk about later. But before we explore further, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Hidizs for sending this item in exchange for my honest feedback. However, as always, all thoughts and opinions are my own. And if you've been enjoying my content, a sub to the channel and a like on this video will be greatly appreciated. Now that's all out of the way, let's talk about the unboxing. Opening the box, you'll be greeted by the IMs themselves. Taking the first layer out reveals all the provided ear tips, which they provided 3 kinds of interchangeable ear tips, a set for bass enhancement, a set for balanced tonality, and another set for vocals. It also comes with a carrying pouch, which is pretty standard, and in there, the cable, which fits the theme perfectly with its ashy white color scheme, and it ends in 4.4mm termination because Planar need their power. But this cable doesn't feel as sturdy as I would typically prefer my cables to be, and sometimes I pair the MP145 with the Chimera cable as well just to get that additional stiffness, and it still fits in with the overall theme, but your preferences may vary. Just exploring the ear tips a little bit to get an understanding on what are the differences, and I would have a separate dedicated video on ear tips sometime down the line, but just using these as a quick example, the bass enhanced ear tips have a narrower hole at the tip and it's slightly longer. The vocal ear tips is much shorter with its much wider hole diameter, and the balanced ear tips is essentially a balance of both worlds. And this is typically the kind of ear tips you use if you want to alter the sound of your IEMs ever so slightly to suit a particular requirement, be it a touch more bass, a touch more vocal presence, but it's only one aspect of the sound and it will not completely change the tuning of the IEM. And to most, ear tips are all about finding the right fit and comfort, and that itself influences what you pick at the end of the day. This package also gives you 2 additional sets of interchangeable tuning filters, so including the one it already comes equipped with, you have 3 pairs of tuning filters to choose from, and it comes with this little case to keep your filters safe, which is nice. While from afar you might not think that there are any changes between these filters, but under the light, and hopefully it's captured on camera, there are very small but noticeable changes between all of them. So the red filter supposedly boosts the lower end, the silver supposedly boosts the high end, and the balance filter, which is the beautiful rose gold filter, is again a balance between the two. And we'll talk about how these affect sound, if any, later in the video, so stay tuned for that. But first, we gotta talk about the design. For the design of this IM, it apparently takes some inspiration from whales. So you've got the concept of the whale's tail in the center of the faceplate and the rorqual pleat, which are the lines from the lower jaws of the whales going on the sides of the whale's tail design. And I wouldn't even know what rorqual pleat even meant until I read about this from the campaign. So I'm already learning something from this experience, which seems to align with the purpose of this IM's release. Anyway, the design itself is simple and it has its own characteristics, and the silver metallic color on this unit looks really nice and it's built like a tank with its metal shell. However, there's just no hiding it. This is as big as a whale. It is chunky with all capital letters. It's really large. I mean, this is how it looks in comparison with the Monarch Mark II, and there's not a lot of grooves and contours on this IM, so this raises a lot of concerns about fit and comfort initially, and to my surprise, it's doing something different. Let's explore. So for fit and comfort, at least for my ears, is relying on the nozzle and the cable for support. So with the nozzle being pushed out, it pushes out the rest of the IM out of your ear, ear, so nothing from the shell is touching your ears and is relying on the cable to support it like a cantilever. So it's not the most ideal situation, but at least you're not getting the discomfort of having to fit this large IAM into your ear, which is a relief in itself. However, if this gets any deeper, you do run the risk of the edges rubbing off on the sides of your ear, so something to be wary about. It does get a little fatiguing after a while since it's heavily relying on the nozzle for support, and I do find myself adjusting these quite a bit to ensure the hooks are hooked securely to my ear to ease some of that burden from the nozzle. So I have to admit that it's not the most comfortable IAM to wear, but your experiences may vary. So from here you have everything at your disposal to quote unquote tune the sound of the MP145 to suit your personal sound preference, but what does it actually sound like to begin with? The sound I'm about to describe is on the balanced filter and on the balanced ear tips. So for the bass, the bass. It is fast, it is rounded, it is meaty, and when it hits, it smacks. Planar magnetic bass has always been known to have a very fast attack, and it doesn't disappoint here. There's some rumble coming in from the deep end to give that bass note a little bit of texture, or at least an illusion of it. It brings more than enough to keep tracks engaging. It keeps your head bobbing to the beat, though you can't be bobbing too much or else these IAMs are going to fall off your ears, but you get my point. It's enough to satisfy bass hits. For mid-range, it's an all-in-one type of presentation where the vocals and the background music are on the same plane. The overall presentation is on the forward side but not too closed in, especially coming from the Voodoo verse 1. There's some warmth carrying through from the lower frequencies. Vocal notes do sound full and have a bit of weight to it, so a bit of give and take on the mid-range, but overall if you enjoy warm presentations then you might enjoy the MP145. For treble, there's enough highs in the trebles to give the vocal notes a bit of openness and clarity. There's treble extensions which help with air instruments, especially in their attack and presence. While to me it didn't sound piercing in any way, I can still understand if this may be a bit sharp for people, so I'll still put a mild caution for treble sensitive people. There's honestly not a lot of fault in this aspect of the frequency, and it helps with the following aspect of the sound as well. The way the treble is presented helps with pushing out the micro details through all the presence of bass. It also helps that the overall presentation is on the forward side to make those subtle details a bit more audible. However, if there is one small nitpick I have on the MP145, it will be in the spatial positioning, which is about average. There are details coming through, but I feel there's not enough separation between sounds, so it can get a little bit congested, especially on busy tracks. So while it's not a mashed potato of sound coming at you, I still wish there was a bit more space in between those sounds, which would have helped with its positioning within the soundstage as well, especially since it's a bit more closed in, and it would help with making it feel a bit more open rather than what is being presented now. So as mentioned earlier, depending on which ear tips and tuning filters you use, there is a very subtle change to the original sound as mentioned earlier. However, this also depends on how sensitive you are to such changes, because if you're expecting a night and day change, then you'll be quite disappointed. However, let's explore what I heard listening to different filters and ear tips. The red filter adds a touch of weight to the bass, and if coupled that with the bass enhanced ear tips, it's bass glory. So you get the speed of a planar magnetic bass with added weight. However, the compromise is that it bleeds a little into the mid-range, and the bass details are so prominent now that it can sometimes overwhelm the micro details in the track, and it becomes an even busier listening experience. So if you're all about that bass, then the red filter and the bass enhanced ear tips combo will give you that, and I feel the ear tips contribute more to that presentation than the filter for me. The silver filter adds a touch of sparkle and sizzle to the treble presentation, so I wouldn't touch this filter if you're sensitive to treble highs. But if you somewhat felt the balance filter was lacking a little, then this filter would help a little, and it helps with the presence of some of the details in the track. On the vocal ear tips, there wasn't a lot of changes, if any, at least for me. It did sound maybe just a bit more open, but I felt the bass was the compromise, and it didn't necessarily help with the forward presentation of the MP145, and it still remains as an all-in-one kind of presentation at the end of the day, but it's definitely one I'd recommend if you want a touch more attack on the detail presentation. All in all, after testing all the ear tips and tuning filters, I ended up with using the balanced tuning filter with the balanced ear tips, and I feel it's the best option for my own personal sound preference. For power, it does take a bit of power compared to other IAMs. On the 4.4mm balanced termination, I need to get to about 15 out of 100 on Moondrop Dawn, when other IAMs go to about 13, which doesn't sound like much, but every incremental number is quite significant. On my Hi-Fi Man EF400, I'm about 10 o'clock on the dial. All in all, I'm actually pleasantly surprised by this release. The Hidizs MP145 is as close to being a complete packaged IEM than I expected. It comes with plenty of options in the forms of ear tips and tuning filters to help you quote-unquote tune the sound of the MP145 to suit your personal sound preference, and it would have been an absolute slam dunk if not for its sheer size, which makes it hard to fit the general masses. But boy do I love Planar, and this IEM enforced that. This may be my first experience with Hidizs, but I'm excited to see what comes next. However, this is based on my personal experience and I'm curious to know yours. Are you excited about the arrival of the MP145, or what is your favorite Hidizs product to date? Comment below, let me know, and once again, thank you to Hidizs for this opportunity and to all of you for watching. Until the next experience, take care and happy listening.